In this video, I will show you Rolex's marketing strategy and how they build their brand that made them billions. This is the marketing story of one of the best and most popular luxury brands in the world, Rolex. Handing out Rolexes to celebrities, spending millions just to be seen for half a second during a Formula 1 race, and sponsoring events like the Olympics. It all begs the question, how the hell is any of this profitable? Can brand awareness really be worth spending hundreds of millions of dollars every year? In order to get a hang of how marketers think regarding all of this, you need to learn the most important word in marketing, ROAS, return on advertisement spent. It simply means how much you get back when you invest $1 into your marketing. I'm going to give you two solid examples so that you can have a clear picture of this. At the start of Corona, I was working for Decathlon, the world's biggest retailer in sports products, and I was the marketing manager. One of the 40,000 products we were selling were socks. If I spent $100 on advertisement and received $400 in sales, it was considered profitable. Keep in mind that you have to factor in cost of production, salaries, and much more in order to see if ROAS of 4 was profitable or not. On the other hand, when I was working for Tavex and sold investment gold, a ROAS of 300 was considered to be pretty good. The reason Tavex needed to have much higher ROAS was because the product itself was extremely expensive, because it was literal gold, so the ads had to be more cost effective. Just like Tavex, luxury brands like Rolex need to have a return on advertisement that is at least 30 or maybe even 100 times what they invest into their marketing. If you pay $500,000 to sponsor the Oscars, you can't really control who or how many people will see your logo, and your ads will never be tailored to whoever is watching. But if done right, and if the physical advertising has been done in front of the right audiences over a long enough period of time, in Rolex's case over 100 years, you will create what's called brand equity and top of mind. The best way I can show you this is by showing you my own watch. This is a Longines Conquest, and I bought it for $25,000. You have a choice in this example. You can either have this watch, or you can have the classic Rolex Submariner, the most famous Rolex watch ever created. A Submariner is worth around $16,000. You're not allowed to sell whichever watch you get, and you're not allowed to give it away. You're only allowed to use it as a jewel and a status symbol. Who cares if the other watch is more expensive if no one is going to see the difference, right? This is brand equity at its finest. And to prove the point, the real price of my Longines is around $1,000. The reason you believed me is because you've probably never heard of Longines and you can't really spot the difference unless you're a watch expert. For a moment there, you had what was called a high perceived value of a product. They create a worth that is much higher than the production of the product itself. Let's take a look at how they do this. Rolex has always associated itself with high achievers and big events. Their most famous early example was Mercedes Gletzi, who swam across the English Channel with a waterproof Rolex around her neck. This was a big deal at the time because they wanted to show how innovative the company actually was. Another iconic moment was when Sir Edmund Hillary wore a Rolex during the first Everest summit. For example, the watch company Omega asked Neil Armstrong to wear the Omega Speedmaster when he would be the first person to ever walk on the moon in 1969. The reason why you didn't know that Neil Armstrong was wearing an Omega at the time is simply because Rolex is better at advertising. Rolex avoids working with anything that might hurt their reputation. This is why they often stay away from pop stars, boxers, American football, and celebrities who love to live on the wild side. Some of the most famous people who have either been sponsored or highlighted to wear a Rolex were Roger Federer, Daniel Craig, and several James Bonds, The Rock, and David Beckham. These were characters that Rolex saw were stable and could be fantastic representatives of their brand. Now, they also do not work with the most popular sports or events like football or Eurovision, because their target audience is not the common masses of people, but instead the rich elite. They sponsor events like Formula 1, where they are the official timekeeper, Wimbledon, and the 24 hours Le Mans endurance car race. This is the stuff that rich people watch, apparently. Not that I would know. These events makes us think of excellence, achievement, and luxury, which is exactly what Rolex is all about. So, we've talked about ROAS, brand equity, and there is one more important thing you need to know about in order to understand how to measure profitability in brand building, and that is the customer lifetime value. Only after running a business for several decades can a brand like Rolex understand the customer lifetime value. For some products, like this flower pot, it doesn't have a brand, and I'll not think of where I bought this one next time I want to buy a flower pot. If it costed $10, my lifetime value to the store is $10. This is because the company has not worked on brand loyalty. But if a brand like Rolex nurtures their clients, invites them to events, and always makes sure to be on top of their person's minds when looking for the next luxury watch, then they can see how much the person is worth to them long term because they will be returning customers. When you buy a Rolex, they will register the watch to your name. And this is partly so that if a Rolex is found, it can be returned to its owner through the serial number. But it is also so that Rolex can see how many watches a customer usually buys over their lifetime. This helps them create strategies to increase the average customer lifetime value because they get to know their clients more and they adapt their marketing so that customers can become repeat customers. In other words, it's simply easier to convince one rich person who has already bought many Rolexes before to buy one Rolex for $1 million, rather than convincing 200 strangers to buy a Rolex watch for $5,000, which adds up to $1 million as well. Rolex works a lot with creating scarcity and urgency in order to create exclusivity and prestige. You need to be on a waiting list, and the product itself is extremely expensive. This actually creates a value in and of itself. There is a reason why many second-hand Rolex watches are actually more expensive than the same watch at retail price. I can show you why with a very simple example. Imagine that you have finally reached a level of wealth that you can buy your first Rolex. You have said to yourself over the years that you will get this symbol of success at a certain age or at a certain milestone that you have now finally reached. When you get to the store ready to give your money, they tell you, sorry, you have to be on a waiting list like everyone else, and we might sell you this one watch in about a year. You now have two choices. Let's say you want to buy that Rolex Submariner for $16,000. You can either wait for almost a year for a phone call that tells you to run to the store and buy that watch today, or it'll go to somebody else. Or you can pay a higher price to get the same watch today. If money is not a problem to you, you might pay $5,000 more just to have what you wanted to have and not having to wait, right? Well, that extra $5,000 is exactly the extra worth that scarcity and urgency creates. So, how is all of this kind of marketing profitable? After Rolex has been advertising on a specific event, there are many ways they can indirectly measure the effectiveness of a physical marketing campaign. You'll notice that pretty much all of these methods are not precise at all, which is why digital marketers are not so eager to use these methods. For example, after the event, we look at the social media mentions in the geographic area. Also, how many people in that geographical area visited a Rolex website after the event. Marketers also use polls that are made before and after the event to see how many people actually know more and want to buy a Rolex. We also look at the amount of media mentions, engagement metrics such as likes, shares, comments, and hashtags usage related to Rolex after the event. We can see here that people Googled Rolex the most at the 9th of April this year, which is when they released new watches. Now, keep in mind that the only real way you can kind of measure this sort of branding, if it's profitable or not, is by looking at the ROAS over an extremely long period of time, keeping the customer average lifetime value in mind to see if it grows over the years or not, and even then, you compare that what you spend on advertising per year and compare your sales. These numbers have to be taken with a bucket of salt, of course, since Rolex relies on how high ROAS the overall strategy has long term, not individual campaigns. When building a big brand, you have to be a master of storytelling. Just like Rolex, whenever they are attaching their brand to a huge event that pushes the human limit forward. Rolex uses this whenever they associate themselves with great achievers and create amazing content about their achievements of the brand ambassadors. And, of course, by always focusing on quality and building trust in every part of their messaging, they increase the customer lifetime value and brand loyalty because the customers want to come back to what they already know and love. I wanted to show a few successful brands that have a similar approach to marketing, and at the top of the list is, of course, Apple. They hype up new products through high-end events and always focus on quality and use trusted celebrities to send out their message of quality, luxury, and innovation. Louis Vuitton can always be found at events that are associated with high-end fashion, luxury, and the lifestyle of the wealthy traveler. Everything that has to do with this brand is handmade and is of highest quality. The third and my favorite example is Tesla, because although they don't market themselves the same way as Rolex, their brand messaging is focused on the exciting challenges humanity has, like fighting climate change by changing the car industry. So if you ever want to have a masterclass in how to build a luxury brand and be excited about buying the next product, then Rolex is the #1 pick for most marketers. I would love to hear what you think about Rolex's marketing and which brand you would like me to talk about next. Please subscribe and click right over here to see how Amazon became a tech giant with brilliant marketing and AWS. Until next time, take care.